So I thought with me getting back into Starsector here, I thought it might be prudent to actually show you how to get this game actually installed on your system, modding it, and then maybe messing around with the files here to see if you can get your game to your liking. Let's get started. So welcome everyone. Today we're going to take a look at actually how to, first off, purchase Starsector, get it installed, get some mods actually installed in it, and then maybe start messing around with the game file settings itself to get a game more tailored to your experience. So first, actually buying Starsector. Well, if you go over here to the fractalsoftworks.com website, you can go ahead, click the big blue button that says buy Starsector. They'll send you a nice little key. Now with that key, they'll probably also send you download instructions for this game, but in case you don't have that, you can always go ahead and try to contact them again if you need to get your key back from your email. If you need to do this, you can always just go ahead and email them at keys@bmtmicro.com. Now beyond that, if you actually need to get the download file, the executable, you can come over here to releases. In this section, we'll have a big old button here that download for any sort of platform you have, Linux, Windows, or Mac OS. Go ahead and click it, it'll give you a .exe file to download. Go ahead and download that. Note, this may take a while. Alright, after you actually have Starsector download, go ahead and click on the executable and get started on that. Just go ahead and follow the prompts to actually install it. Go through a series of next, create your desktop icon, create all of that. I already have it installed, so don't have to worry about that. If you are reinstalling it from a previous or older version of Starsector, you can go ahead and install it and go through the process steps for that, and it'll just rewrite everything with the newer data installed and give you a fresh install. So that's how you install and update Starsector. To actually start modding this, you have to go over to the forums section here. Now the reason why you have to go over to the forums section is that it similarly acts to that of like Nexus or any sort of mod distribution page. It's just an amalgamation of where everyone posts all of their mods, and the Fractal software mod forums is excellent for that. Now go ahead and navigate to the mods section. In there's plenty of mods and plenty of different pages here going over each individual mod. Now, it can be a bit overwhelming trying to go through each individual page and try to figure out how to download it and this, that, or the other. Don't worry about that. What you can easily do for a lot of you new players is just navigate over here to the mod index section, and they have a huge swath of mods here that you can download. Some of these are high impact mods, some of these are low impact mods, and some of them are just more or less quality of life improvements. Now, as a first-time player, if you're just getting started into this, I wouldn't recommend putting too many mods into this game, just so you can actually get a base feeling of what the game is like, and to actually go ahead and put in what you actually may need. Now, as for someone like me, there is quite a few mods that I would first recommend getting. Alright, so just a little explanation here. When you're actually looking at this mod index page, you notice that some of these mods are actually color-coded. Blue just means the mods are actually currently up to date. Yellow means they're likely out of date, but also potentially going to work as well. But red means they're highly unlikely to work given the given state of the game. Beyond that, what are the couple of mods that I recommend getting as a first timer here? Well, first things first, I recommend downloading something like Audio Plus. Just helps with adding in a little bit of diversity to the audio sounds and tracks within the game. Especially when you get to the later end of the game, these are definitely going to be necessary, just so you break up the monotony. Beyond that, we also have autosave here. Just reminds you to autosave and does it for you in some instances. So in that way, it just prevents you from going an hour, 2 hours, and all of a sudden, oh, I gotta reload. Actually, just kidding. You gotta reload a long time back. So it just saves you time, and it's kind of nice. However, notice that some of these mods do actually have dependencies. They'll say it's like requires this, that, or the other. So usually you can just go ahead and click it. It's usually a hyperlink. You can go ahead and just download that as well. It's usually one of the many libraries that are within this game that you can see underneath here, and quite a few mods actually utilize these, so I just recommend going ahead and downloading all of them. Concord, the drone library, the graphics library, the lazy library, and the magic library. And the reason for this is that at some point you're probably going to download other mods that have these requirements, so might as well just do it now. Beyond that, when you start messing into the more grander scale mods here, because there's plenty here for you to actually work with, go ahead, go down each item here, and just take a look. See if it's something that you would want. See if it's something you would desire. I wouldn't recommend trying to go for a lot of content expansion mods or a lot of faction mods at the beginning, just because there's a huge potential for you to get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff in there. And sometimes if you add too much in, it can also make your game pretty unstable and pretty unbalanced in a lot of circumstances, because I'll readily admit, a lot of these mods, they definitely introduce a lot of ways to exploit the game that make it incredibly easy to propel yourself immediately into late game. Beyond that, another mod that's usually pretty common with a lot of people's playthrough, including mine, is this Nectarelian mod here. It's a fantastic mod, adds in a lot of features to this game. So if you're ready for a second or third playthrough, I would definitely recommend trying out something like this because it adds in a whole heaping dynamic aspect to it. From either conquering planets, for each faction actually declaring war against each other, to them actually sending raiding parties out to conquer their own planets, actually changing up who owns what planets. I mean, that's a lot of dynamic nature to this. Plus, there's plenty of other miscellaneous small things involved in this, so I'd recommend going ahead and trying this out if you're looking for something to spice up your next playthrough. To download these mods, pretty easy. You just click the download button. Nothing terribly hard. Just go ahead. It's usually a hyperlink, and then it prompts you to download a zip file of some sort. Go ahead and do this after you manage to get all of your various mods loaded. And just do that 1,000 times, and then we'll meet back up. Alright, as you can see here, we got plenty of mods for us to go ahead and install. So I'll just go ahead and highlight them, cut them out, and then we'll just go to where we installed ours. So in our case, we installed it on our main C drive here. We'll go to program.86. We'll go down to Fractal Softworks, where the game is located, Starsector, and then we'll go to the mod section here. And as you see, I have plenty of mods within this game that I have already installed myself. So I'm just going to go ahead and put those away. So we'll go ahead and paste our zip files in here. And at this point, you can go ahead and extract them, use whatever software is available to you, WinRAR, 7-zip, whatever works, and just click extract here. We'll click yes to all, and there we go. Now we have our mods installed. And now if we actually opened up Starsector, we'd actually find all of the mods listed underneath the mod section here that you can just go ahead and click on accept and then save, and then from there you can just go ahead and open up Starsector and your mods should be working. Now if you're later into the game, you actually want to start customizing your mods and customizing your game itself, you can actually modify the mods themselves, so modifying the modifiers. Kind of a tongue twister. But for an example here, let's go look at the terraforming and station construction mod. It has plenty of options for end users here that are usually not enabled. Let's go ahead and take a look inside. Now this is what it basically looks like. If you go to the data section, generally there's going to be a configure section that you can work with, and there's going to be a settings file. This won't be uniform for all mods, but most mods are laid out like this. And go ahead and look at it. It's just a giant text file here. You can generally just run this with the regular text software on Windows. Now in this case, there is plenty of options here to actually go ahead and mess around with. And it's kind of hard to actually understand what it is at some points in time, but it's actually pretty simple. So if you actually want a system or an item to actually be active, then usually it has to be in a true state. If you don't want it to be active, then it has to be in a quote-unquote false state. That's what you usually see here. It's like true or false, true or false, true or false. So for example, here we're down in the station setting here. And if we actually want to change how long it actually takes to actually make a station and get it up and running, then in this case, we'd have to set this to true, and then we can actually set a day amount to actually force it to take a little bit longer to actually enable a station to bring it up from construction. Or say if you want to increase the amount of a certain station that can rotate around a planet, then instead of 3, you can put 4 down, or you can put 5 or 6, or however many that you want to do. Although note, this may come with some potential issues with stability and balance. You can also modify things like if they actually have a number quantity to them, you can actually just go ahead and modify it. So say we don't want the station to cost 500,000 credits because it's a, here it says Astropolis station, credit cost, and then 500,000. This would be the in-game currency. So say if we wanted to be like 450, then all we had to do is just go in here and change it to 450,000, and then click the up here in the top section and save, and that'll usually work. And a lot of mods have a lot of settings that you can usually freely modify with. Some mods may not want you to modify it to actually get the true realistic experience, but a lot of them also encourage you to do it because maybe there's particular balancing issues they don't like personally using, or maybe it's just not your thing. Because I notice a lot of these settings in here, you can easily make this incredibly unfair and easily to scale yourself to late game if you wanted to. Or you can impose more restrictions on yourself or open different avenues for exploration. A lot of this can be done with modifying mod settings. And if you actually want those changes to go through, make sure to click save and then you're set. Although I recommend that if you're going to start modding with the text files of these games, I'd recommend that you copy these actual settings files here, just so that you actually get a backup of whatever you're doing. just in the case that you mess up or it becomes corrupted or some weird process happens, you'll have a backup. In the case that if it's completely catastrophic and there's no way to recover from it, just go ahead and download and reinstall the mod. You should be fine. Now, not only can you modify the mods of this game, but you can also modify the base game itself and actually change some attributes around if you actually wanted to. And to do that, it's pretty simple. Go over here to your basic Starsector again, go to Starsector Core, go to Data, go down to Configure, and then go down to Settings here. And it's the same thing. It's a giant text file here that you can go ahead and mess around with. Now, in the case of a lot of this, you want to change either around your max memory to increase it, because a lot of the time, Starsector does require more memory if you're dealing with a lot of mods, because, as you can imagine, mods contain data, and if the game does not have enough RAM to actually access all the data from the mods and the base game itself, it's either going to slow down and create temporary memory, which is just going to slow down your game experience overall, or just make it outright crash. So, don't want that to happen. Make sure that you have an appropriate amount of RAM that is consistent with your overall system. So if you have 8 gigabytes of RAM, then you may want to do like 4 maximum gigabytes on the game. Or if you have 64 gigs of RAM, go nuts then. Beyond that, there's also a couple of modes here that you can mess around with, like adding in VSync or doing other experimental features. Don't really mess around with these unless you know what you're doing. You can also mess around things like sector width and height. So this just changes how overall large the map is. If you want to make the map much larger, then you can just double these numbers and then paste it in here, save it, and then next time you generate a sector, the sector will be way larger, and that'll allow you to explore more planets if that was a thing you ever wanted to do. You can also change things like the number of gates in the sector or the fuel cost for actually going through it. That's also one thing you can do. You can change the radar radius if you want to change that around to make it a bit more fair in your mind. And you can also change around with the difficulty settings here to make it challenging or less challenging depending on your preference. To do that, just go ahead, modify the number value, whatever you want. So say easy salvage multiplier just increases the amount of salvage you want from any given mode. If you want it to be 2x or 3x, then you can just simply change this 1.5 to say 3.0 and then click save, and there you go. Another one that a lot of people like to modify is the maximum colony size here. So you can see it all the way down here, quite a few pages down. It's max colony size. And I think at the base game it's capped at 6, but a lot of people like capping it at somewhere higher, like in the 10 or 9 range. So this applies to every colony in the game, so any colony that's actually at those sizes already will actually try to grow. But note that when you start getting into the colony sizes of 6 and above, the time it actually takes for the colonies to grow takes quite a long time. But once you start getting those very large colonies, it's a whole heaping sum of money. So it likely will not actually change the overall impact and feel of the game, but if you're one of those people that likes going in there for the super long run, then definitely try to change these settings around, at least to your liking. And again, if you don't know what the actual setting does, because there is 1,101 settings in this game, then don't really modify it. You'll be fine. And same wisdom as above applies. If you're going to mess around with the settings file here, please make a copy of the already existing settings, just in case. If it becomes corrupted and you can't save any of the data, then just go ahead and reinstall Starsector and you should be able to start fresh from there. But that's all the information I have for y'all today, so hopefully you found this at least helpful, entertaining, who the f knows. Other than that, guys, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.